Okay, as most of you know, we started Mudfossil University a while back to address the situation of geology and our ancient past. Now, if you go up on here to Mudfossil University or just put in mudfossils.com, you'll arrive here, and over here, if you click on that, you'll see the DNA report. There was 3 samples sent out 3 years ago, and they all came back as positive DNA in 2 regions, very dense mitochondrial DNA, and they were giant humans. And it was a certified lab, and done in 2 different labs. So we sent all these off to Yale and Harvard, Max Planck, and virtually everybody we could think of, and nobody responded. However, a year or 2 later, Max Planck and Harvard, both who I had sent several times to, did all of a sudden decide that they can find DNA in mud from anywhere. And it's coming from mud fossils, which are leaking the DNA, and they are picking up the DNA dirt that's laying around, and they're finding DNA everywhere. And they just did another gene study that I want to show you, and then I'll show you the evidence that I have. Since they started looking for DNA, they can't unfind it. It's everywhere. Now, this is from physics.org or phys.org. Sweeping gene survey reveals new facets of evolution. Let's just cut to the chase. And here is the smoker. The study's most startling result, perhaps, is that 9 out of 10 species, now listen to this, 9 out of 10 species, including humans, on Earth today, including humans, came into being 100,000 to 200,000 years ago. That's the date they're putting on. Not millions of years ago, not slime to mold to this to that, and then all of a sudden start walking around and shooting guns at each other. No, it all started at the same time, basically, which leads to another conclusion, which is, how did that happen? How did that happen? It was a global catastrophe, and there's a lot of things written about global catastrophes. They didn't happen that long ago, though. Okay, it is time for mud fossils to come out of the closet, and for everything that's on Earth to be seen and exposed for exactly what it is. And it is of extremely strange nature. And people see what they see. Some of them see dragons that are decaying in the desert, and they see dragon-scaled throats. Some of them don't see anything but hills and valleys. Now, what we're going to be doing is looking to the nature of the decomposition of Earth and what the reality is, and how long ago these things were decaying, and how ridiculously large these things were. Alright, and I will have somebody that will be introducing this information at a conference hopefully soon. He's quite polished. I'll show you his credentials shortly. But these are the kind of things that have been dismissed and just allowed to be laughed at as silly, and not even examined for what they really are. And even if a giant dragon was attacking a giant fish in the desert, and it was really there, would that be something that should be seen, or is that something that should be dismissed? Now, if you look at things carefully and you see patterns of decay and destruction that you cannot understand, and you wonder how they happen, and you wonder what kind of, chemistry could possibly have caused such combustive reactions in such a strange area. And then looking at snake venom, you may see an exact match. and wonder why that would be in the Atlas Mountains. And why a giant fish would be there. And then you might think, well, there was a giant ocean here. And then you might say, well, that giant ocean probably ran right out and created all this giant muddy runoff, which, see, it looks like that to me. And then you might ponder to yourself and say, wow, he attacked this fish, perhaps. Possibly. It looks like that might have occurred. That's all I can see from what I'm looking at. And there must have been an ocean here for the fish to be swimming here. He's on this side of the Atlas Mountains. And why are they called Atlas? Because Herodotus put a place out here called Atlantis that actually collapsed and is exactly this size and had metal rings running around it that create these kind of colors from the transition metals, and has all of the characteristics. And they say that the straits collapsed, causing this terrible catastrophe. And some might even call that a straits. And it does appear that everything ran out through this particular area into the ocean and created a tremendous amount of debris, which is understood to be what I would consider to be the Younger Dryas event. However, I don't know about these things. Now, all I can say is that really hasn't been something that would have fit into your average geology lesson, and or archaeology, or there's not too many places in school that you would pick up on something like this. So I think it would be something that should be investigated. However, that's been sort of violently oppressed and suppressed and depressed and repressed. So I am going to press forward with it. And I have a highly respected, highly polished, wonderful human being, by the way, Adrian Husbands, which I will show you his credentials right now. Alright, all I can say is Adrian is a hero, and he will be known for his leadership and stepping forward to speak about this, because this is a hard thing for academics to do, because it flies in the face of what they've been saying. Now, Adrian has, well, you know, you can go up and look at his reservoir, you know, his little blurb here that talks about him, and he's got a lot of things going on, and he's very knowledgeable. We've had a very long talk, and he will be handling the release, and he will be the one doing the presentations over in Europe and Asia and so forth. Is the way we have spoken and the way we're hoping to have this go down at some conferences, and then we're hoping to have some workshops and try to get this in the mainstream, because it's there's a lot to absorb. There's a lot of processes going on. There's a lot of chemistry. There's a lot of archaeology, there's a lot of land formations, geology, biology, the whole thing. You have to have the whole package. The chemistry is absolutely critical. The transition metal understanding of how that carboxylates within the creature's body, absolutely fundamental. Anatomy, critical. And then the process of molecular invasion, nucleophilic reactions, all of that stuff is where minerals and different molecules invade and either attach or replace. And carboxylation is a process of replacement. And carbon goes in and out of creatures continuously. C14 does not work. So, and that is understood by carboxylation. Anybody understands that, and I'll show you why I can make that statement. Now this is why you need a diverse background. This is a heart. It's not just a rock. It's not just an opal. They call it a Yoa nut. And I try to explain to them, this is a heart. Oh no, it's an opal. I said, oh, it's an opal. But it was a heart originally. A heart was an organic heart. And what happened is over the course of time, now this didn't happen like spontaneous combustion. This was over the course of time, minerals and molecules invade here in a wet blood solution. The reason I know it's blood, because there were so many transition metals that every molecule in here could find a transition metal to stabilize itself. And it did, and it became opal rock, basically. Now, when it was cut open, you will see that all the transition metals are, you see them all, they're in the blood. All the colors are transition metals. And that is what circulates through your body and drags around the chemicals. And they work through pH, through a transition. It's a 1 electron transition in these metals that can attach to other molecular species, really. They're little packages of molecules that these metals attach to, and then they bring them down to where the pH is a little bit lower, and it pops them right off of there, because the electron now is no longer needed, or is needed, one or the other. And they bring things down, they pick things back up, and they deliver them out through the lungs through carbonic acid. Carbon. This worked a long time to become this stable. And you can see the heartstrings, you can see the ventricle walls, you can see the aorta, you can see all of the fascia on the outside, and it's all there. And they all have their own exact signature. There is a lot to learn from mud fossils, a very lot. I have anatomical models that I have that are made from the literal creatures' bodies. And here's one right here. Well, it's around here somewhere, but I've got a lot of them around here, and I show them all the time. So, hold on, I'll find them. All right, this is what I have here, mud fossils. You see, that's the top of the bone head, and that's where the cartilage is, and that's where the ligaments invest, all those tiny little ligament balls, and they come over, and it holds another bone right against it, the ligaments. The bone is completely gone except the tiniest little bit right there, which is still a spicule of bone, but otherwise than that it's gone, and it still has all of the outside. I guess they call it the periosteum or the tunica. The ancient Greeks called it tunica. I think I'll go with that. Now then, and some of them are literally meat. That's like the fascia tongue that holds the fascia system together. You see that? It grabs a hold of it, and it secures it in your body. Now let me show you something, and a lot of this stuff's DNA tested. There's a DNA tested eroded fingertip, and that's the bone black, or you could, some of them call it the carbon silhouette. It's actually, I believe, iron, and that is the pattern of the distal phalanges, and there's your artery, your vein and your artery. The artery side blows out because there's no valves, and the vein side does not blow out because there's valves, but the little places, the little sockets are there, they just don't blow out. Now, and that was DNA tested, that's human. And the other part that came out of that same hole was this fingertip, but it was in a whole different location, didn't erode the way that did. And this has been CAT scanned and anatomist certified and all that stuff. Now, all that stuff is from Earth. Now, this came from outer space. That is a meteorite that blistered coming through the atmosphere, and the red-blooded side boils and explodes because red blood is not like black blood. See, that is this was, I believe, another fingertip, and it came through space, and I don't care what you say, that's what happened. Now, that's how it got scorched out of here and blistered off, and the blood side explodes, and that is exactly loaded with blood, and that is from a meteorite. Now, we have all the blood you can ever ask for all over Earth from these things. They're all over the place, and that is the bone, the tendon enthesis. You see that ball right there? That's the antithesis. That's the stalk that comes up to the, it went over here, but it got boiled off. You see, it's all fibery now. But originally it was coming out of that stalk. And the holes in the stalk are the blood supplies and the vein and so forth. I mean the nerves and so forth. And these are the things that grab a hold. Now that's why that didn't burn off. These are the tough things underneath here. All the fleshy stuff is gone. This was the side that had the vein. That's the black side. The black side, blood turns black when it's mud fossil blood, and the red doesn't. The red turns red, stays red, or it actually blows out most of the time, like it did on this fingertip. You see this fingertip here? All right, that's the red blood side over here. It blows out. You see it in here? Let me see if I can get a shot of that. Can you see deep inside there and see the red blood that's in there? That's because of vein. I mean, it's artery. Artery is red blood. And then what happens is the red blood comes down here and is saturated with oxygen, FeO3. And as it migrates its way over through little bitty blood vessels, it turns brown and dark and light. And notice this is blacker than the ace of spades over here. And it gets sucked back up through the vein, which has clamps in there. It won't let the blood go backwards. So these things are here, and I mean, why don't they just test the blood that's on Earth? It's from these comets. They all have them. I mean, Comet 67P is literally meat in space. I don't care what you say, I can prove that. And NASA knows that. They say it's 100% organic. It's so organic they can't even give it a name. Well, I can, because it's life. No question whatsoever. They just have to look at these things. It's time to change the way they respond to evidence. I have DNA, I have CAT scans, I have anatomist authentications, I have the specimens, I've done the chemistry, I've actually recreated the process in my little lab here, and it's not hard to do. It's a process of water logging and then mud saturation for a long period of time. That's all. And then it turns like rubbery, and then as soon as it dries out, it turns real leathery, and then it turns hard. I'll show you. All right, that's chicken tissue. Now, that's pretty solid now. And it'll get harder and harder. You know, there's spots that are like that's floppy, but this was done a couple of years ago. It took about less than 6 months to do that, and it's pretty close to being. Let me put it this way: if it had stayed in the mud and been in the mud forever, it will eventually turn solid and leach more organics, more and more and more, until it becomes literally mineral. And that's what happens. I did a lot of these little tests with different, like that's with copper and electrical currents. And there are electrical currents in the ground. They're called telluric currents. So it's nothing that I'm making up. And seeing what it does to the structure of the bone and so forth. It's very interesting, because you see a lot of these minerals that are colored, and that's all from the transition metals: copper, silver, gold, all that different stuff. And a lot of my work is, I can tell what things are almost a lot by seeing the different colors, because those are transition metals. Different transition metals collect in different areas. Different areas display anatomy and chemistry. They're really not hard to understand. Blood and the blood vessels, that architecture is critical. And if that fits and the chemistry looks right, you got a match. The anatomy is there. And these are the transition metals. And this is what happens: is they move through your body in the blood, and they can attach and detach according to pH within the blood. It's a process of carboxylation of transition metal complexes. And then when you die, or a creature dies in an aqueous solution, eventually these heavier metals, they call them heavy metals, and some of them they call just metals, but they're the transition metals, they no longer pump through the body. They have specific gravities. They fall through the body, primarily through the arteries, and they collect in certain pockets, and that's why they find gold in veins and arteries, actually. And a lot of them will evacuate, and they will fill with quartz crystals, and just water quartz is really what it is. And they're like clear quartz veins. And then they follow those, and eventually they'll follow that down to where the gold is at the bottom of that. Nothing any clearer than that. You can see the gold, and there's the red blood. And there's a vein, or an artery, one or the other, that blew out. And it's what it is. You don't have gold meeting up with blood for nothing. You see that? This person died, and it filled this toe. That is a toe. And I'll show you why, because I got one. And you see this little thing? That's where the blood stuck out of there. You see that? That's a blood stuck, this place the blood sticks out. And this is the pads of the toe. It became gold because that was the lowest part on that guy's body when he died, standing up, and all the blood flushed down there. You see that? That's a stalk of blood. That's a stalk of blood. That's the tip of the toe. Now I'm going to show you the one that I have here. See that? It's the same toe. It's the same looking thing. That's where the, whoops, where's my finger here? That's where the blood sticks out that side. Of course, it's a little bitty one. And right on that, sticking up at you, would be where the other one comes out. It's the exact same architecture. You see that? Those little round balls there at the bottom, those are the balls of your finger or your toe. And the very tip is up there at the very tip. It's identical. And you see that white stuff? That is skin. Believe it or not, that's skin. I don't know if you can see it. Very, very ancient toe. Now this is the other side. And you can see, it's, let me see if I can find it. There it is. You see it? Now, I don't know, this got in a fire somehow, or what happened to it. But you see that little stub sticking out? It's identical. Now let's go look at it again. Now, I've been telling everybody anything can turn into anything, depends on where it is and what flushes through it. That's the actual artery or vein. There it is right there. That would have been blood, but now it's gold. And these are the pads of the toe or the finger, whatever it is, I'm not sure. But it is identical to the one that I just showed you, the black one. Now, this is the other side that comes off for the vein, or the other. It's vein and artery, vein and artery, vein and artery up at the top. Now, this is where it fills in. Your fingers and toes are flush with blood, specifically your fingers, extremely flush. And you have pads on your fingers. You can feel them if you feel around, or your toes too. And at the very end, they have a ball. It's called, they have a little piece at the end. It's called an apical tuft. I have one of those here too, which I will show you. Which I can't find again. Hold on a second. Alright, this is what they call an apical tuft. And it sits, the phalanges bones sit right in there. And the balls of the little tendinous ball holes, you see these little tuberosities, all these holes. These balls fit in there, and these strings come back, and that holds the finger. This one still has the ball in it. There's still a ball implanted here. And that is what sits at the end, and that is what allows your finger to do all its little movements. Now, that's what it is. That's all I can say is what it is, what it is. Okay, as you all know, Mudfossil University is free to all, and it was never the intention to go this way, but I, after 3 years of research and presenting everything, and that was 3 years ago, it was all rejected and denied and dismissed, so I decided that I could no longer go with that. And all the research is now quite valid and quite certain. So denial is not really in the future whatsoever. I do have a video. Let me leave you with that, but hold on one second. Come to Mudfossil University. Subscribe. When you do that, there'll be a little bell. Click the bell. We got almost 31,000. Now we're putting on close to, I don't know, 500, 1,000 a week, right around in that area. And tell everyone you know, because otherwise, if you don't tell them, you're going to be living in your own universe like I am. Because people don't understand this, and they will not understand it until you step forward and you put yourself on the line like Adrian is, and like I am, and like they are in California. All right? I have people in California. California is teaching mud fossils. All right? You can come up here and look at it. I asked if it was okay to put this, and the teacher said yes, absolutely. It has to be taught to the kids. I love, love, love your videos. I'm a 5th grade school teacher and can't get enough. The kids love them. Come up here and read it. They go home and they put the cell phones down. And they watch mud fossils and they learn. And there is so much up here to learn. It's not just mud fossils, it's everything. Every single thing about your life and about your history and about your health and about our ancient past. Alright? It's not something silly either. There's nothing here that does not get supported with facts. Okay, I guess I will leave it at that, but I'd love to have some people that are in the system that can influence the system. That's what I need. I mean, I appreciate everybody being interested and excited, because it's interesting, it's exciting. And it should be studied. It is our past. It is very, very related to everything. It's not a curiosity. It's not something silly. It's just something that is spectacular and hard for people to embrace instantly. I understand that. I understand that maybe there shouldn't even have been a reason to look at this, but I saw it, and I saw it, and I can't unsee it. And if you see it, you will never be able to unsee it either. So I think we all should see the same thing. Let those who don't want to see go look elsewhere. But to unsee it because you're afraid to see it, that is not right. That is not truth. That's not science. It's not intelligence. And we're going to have to change that. It's Mud Fossil University. You have to tell people about this. You have to make your voice heard. All right? Show them these videos. Go up here. Show them about how tall were giants. Giant stone balls are now understood. These just gigantic stone balls that are all over the earth. I know what they are. All of this stuff is now understood. How tall were giants? I know how tall they were. We know about dragons. You probably didn't know that there was Triassic footprints and Triassic feet discovered either. Time to change the attitude and look. Then if you think it's crazy, unlook.